Welcome to The Growth Shift, the podcast where we unlock the psychological and strategic blueprints of predictable growth. If you've built a successful business, you know the truth. Your expertise is high value, but your time is finite. The question is, how do you sustain that success without sacrificing your most valuable asset? We believe that the next level of success requires a strategic pivot, a fundamental shift that moves beyond the old ways. In every episode, we dive into the critical turning points of industry leaders and uncover how they're leveraging AI not as a shortcut, but as the strategic force for their next growth shift. Today, we dive in with a leader who is defining the future of their industry. This episode is brought to you by Valentix, your strategic growth partner. At Valentix, we believe that trust and authentic relationships are the only true currency in high-value business. We challenge the status quo by building an AI-powered client acquisition engine that enhances your human connection, helping you move beyond the slow growth of referrals. Our AI-powered systems eliminate the grind, allowing you to break through the noise, build high-value relationships, and free up your time to focus on transformative client impact. If you're ready to build a predictable growth engine, learn more at valentix.io. Now let's dive into today's episode. Today on The Growth Shift, we're joined by Mike Murphy, the Managing Director of Sunstone Management Advisors. Mike's career is a masterclass in strategic growth and operational excellence, forged over decades in diverse industries, including building an insurance company from the ground up to a $500 million valuation. As a self-described bucking bronco who thrives where the action is, Mike now leads Sunstone, helping small to mid-sized businesses and some larger companies achieve extraordinary growth through strategic execution and operational excellence. His insights into market segmentation, proprietary distinction, and the critical role of strategic decision-making offer a powerful blueprint for leaders seeking sustainable success. Mike, welcome to The Growth Shift.
It's great to be here, David. Thanks for the kind intro.
Hey, you've done all the work. I'm just sharing a bit about it. It's great to have you on the show.
I'd say you ain't bragging if you've done it, right?
Yeah, it's the truth. It's the truth. Well, Mike, your journey began with an early lesson, right? To do lots of things differently and not travel the road that is most traveled. Tell us a little bit more about your foundational experiences, some of the highlights along the way, and how it is you ended up leading Sunstone Management Advisors.
Yeah, so I had great fortune to have had a number of people along the way. I call them Sherpas, rabbis, coaches, whatever, that help guide me along the way. One of the earliest lessons I got was a very young man, and he got pulled aside by somebody, and they said, don't take your career path where everybody else is going. You know, you need to do lots of very different things as you're building your portfolio, lots of left-hand turns, because I had this sense that I was going to go from here to here to here. And he goes, no, I want you to go over here. And he sent me in a direction that I never anticipated. I became a manager of a production unit, which was not in my cards, but it helped me learn how to be a leader. It helped me learn how to manage an operation, a customer service operation. But anyway, I took that lesson with me my entire career. So if you look at my career, you'll see lots of left-hand turns from function perspective, and also in terms of size of company and that sort of thing. So, and at the end of the day, to quote Brian Mills, I have a unique set of skills. A lot of that's just because I did lots of very different things and got that advice early on. So my career started inside the large company. I was there 15 years, thought I would never do anything different. My alma mater, learned a lot, met a lot of amazing people, but I woke up one day and realized that having a bigger job inside the larger company wasn't having a better job, at least for me spiritually. And started to do a little bit smaller things, some on entrepreneurial, which is buildy fixie things inside mid-sized companies. And that was just okay. So be very wary. Lesson of the company saying they want sea change, because a lot of times they want the ultimate definition of madness, which is figure out a way to keep doing what they're doing and hope the results change. And then the back part of my career was C-suite leadership, small and mid-sized companies, all kind of in the healthcare and insurance space. And that's where I had, some, really notable success. And when I finished up assignments and I was looking to do what I was going to do next, people pulled me aside and said, look, you're really good at building and fixing things. I mean, that's what I love to do. I'm not a maintenance person. Like, if you give me a job that's a maintenance job and ask me to run it, I will deliberately break it to make it interesting. So yeah, I got to be building and fixing things. Got to be on the move. Got to be growing. Got to be doing something. And they said, let's pair, put our resources together and let's help as many companies as we can on their journey to be extraordinary, which is what you live and breathe for. And importantly, we can walk away from companies that maybe not interested in that journey. And let's apply our wares to places that want us and don't work in the places that, don't. And so that's how we relaunched Sunstone Management Advisor. Sunstone is a Viking navigation device. It was thought to be mythological. It allowed the Vikings prior to the compass to see the sun in the sky when it was behind the clouds or below the horizon. But they actually found it in some archaeological ruins. So we love the notion of the Sunstone, where we help our clients find their sun in the sky to launch them on their epic journey. So not getting all Lord of the Rings on you here, but that's kind of the background of it. And we've been at it about 3 years now. Our strategy is to help companies be extraordinary. A lot of that's growth, which I know is relevant to this conversation. Some of it is operational excellence and growth and earnings, profitability. A lot of it's strategy, which is just compass setting and putting on the right direction. And sometimes it's just fractional leadership and being another set of arms and legs. So that's my background, and that's how I got here.
Yeah, incredible. I got to add in, I'm a bit of a Lord of the Rings nerd myself. So if you want to chat about that another time, more than happy to do so.
Right in the back, I got all the old, even the old ones, the Silmarillion. I'm a real nerd, so I got them all back there as well.
Amazing. Yeah, awesome. I love the cohesion in your journey and the direction you've been going, because it always hasn't been in a forward direction, right? You've mentioned you've took a lot of left-hand turns, right? You've had Sherpas to guide you along the way, and a Sherpa helps you find the best path, right? A lot of business owners, leaders, entrepreneurials, they know what the goal is. It's the top of the mountain, right? You might know the direction you're going, but if you have a Sherpa to guide you along the way, left-hand turns aren't necessarily a bad thing, right? Because 4 left-hand turns has you moving back in the same direction that you were originally anyway. So I love just the analogy of the Sunstone with the name behind the brand right now too, in terms of, guiding people forward. It's helping them find the sun, right?
Yep.
Mike, you've taken a lot of left-hand turns. Right? You've learned a lot of different things along the way. What do you think was perhaps the most memorable growth shift moment, or that left-hand turn that led to the biggest impactful change in you and how you approach business?
Yeah, I think it dates back to a part in my career where when you're inside a large company, while what you do is important and people rely on you and you're as a manager or whatever, but to a large extent, you're executing other people's plays, right? Except I got this one opportunity where I was put in charge of a market. It was a troubled market, and there was a corporate play and a corporate strategy, but my job was to come in and figure out how to compete. It was a highly saturated market. We were a national player in healthcare, employee benefits, healthcare, that sort of thing. The locals dominated. We were struggling. The enterprise was struggling. And it was really the first time for me that I got to put in play a strategy and execute it and see if it was going to work. And it worked beyond, my wildest dreams. And it also, bore into me the importance of the fundamentals around building growth companies and build strategy. It's the old joke that, here's a rifle, keep going to hit some Russians. That's not a plan, right? It's having a clear strategy. It's having an understanding. So the highlight of the picture is the market was losing money. We were floundering. We had some leverageable assets. We had a good team. We had a very fledgling small operation. We didn't have a lot of resources. We were competing against monsters who had dominated 40 to 50% of the market. We were trying to find a foothold, and the corporate play wasn't working. And so I was brought into that environment. As you describe, buck and bronc. I'm on the buck and bronc again. And I had to sort out and figure out a strategy. And the bottom line is that fundamentals on segmentation, analyzing your addressable market, found a slice where we could dominate. The competition was a little weaker there. We executed, but we demonstrated to the market our commitment, rallied the troops with little resources, and grew our market share 30%, and then set the stage going forward in a massive profit turnaround and really secured the perimeter. They were calling us a miracle at the time, but a lot of it was just fundamentals.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. I see that even within industries that have some pretty major players and competitors who seem like, well, they are dominating the market, but they seem like they have everything covered, right? They're often so broad and sure, so well known. They have lots of reputation, but they're so broad that they're often missing out on some pretty critical segments or slices of the market that are being underserved. So it sounds like really what you were able to do is carve out that segment that you identified as being underserved, that weren't getting the value from the major players, make a name for yourselves, and then you were really able to capture more of the market share from there.
Yeah, and sometimes it's the these dominant players, it's beyond their scope. Maybe they can't reach that particular segment the way they want, or they don't care, or they're ignoring it. And in this particular case, it was a space where we were going after larger employers with multiple locations beyond the local market. The local market, these guys dominated. They dominated at the retail, which is enrollment of employees. They dominated with smaller companies locally. But the larger companies, while they had a foothold in them, they really couldn't cover the folks that were around the rest of the country, nor were they able to cover the last holdouts of people who hadn't signed up for their business. And so now the question is that a market? And that's always the million-dollar question. You identify a segment, that's great. But is that truly a market that you can differentiate? How big is it? Is it big enough to sustain you? Can you build a sustainable advantage where you truly have proprietary distinction? We were able to do that. And some of it was creative stuff. We did advertising, but we weren't real retail company. Why we do advertising? Well, because we wanted to demonstrate to the local decision makers that we were serious about the market. Right? So they knew we were serious. Well, they're investing. My competition, which was the big other major, the Aetnas and all United Healthcares and all those, they weren't advertising because they weren't sure about the market. I advertised not because I was going after retail, even though it was a retail advertisement, was to demonstrate to the shareholders that I was serious about what we were doing. And then we built a delivery system back to understand the specific needs of my segment. But by the way, that strategy was different than what Cigna was doing around the rest of the country. It was built on choice and access, having every major teaching hospital and as big of the network as you could get, less of an emphasis on discounts. So it was access and ease of landing. We did customer service things that were different because the people that were signing up for us weren't necessarily used to some of the rules. They were deliberately not signing up for the HMOs. And so we built an entire delivery system around that. And that became, part of our pitch. So when we were pitching versus United or Aetna or anybody else, we had a decidedly different story. And we couldn't run the big guys out of town, but we ran the other ones out. So because we just had a better strategy, executed. And then the other thing is we did some very key things with regards to how we managed our resources, and we had a close to a $10 million profitability turnaround. It was the fundamentals.
Yeah. So, Mike, with these lessons that you learned, the experiences that you've had, the left-hand terms, the guidance from the Sherpas, it led you to where you are now, leading Sunstone and working with small and mid-sized businesses to achieve extraordinary growth through strategic execution. What does that look like? How are you actually coming in and working with your clients today?
Well, so the first thing is I would say we kind of swim in, we talked about kind of healthcare and insurance is kind of our space. And that's a big space, right? So it's also important to describe, what you are and what you're not, right? So we're not an M&A firm. We're not a banking firm. We're not necessarily a life science firm. We're not necessarily a tech firm. But we are as a company that is singularly devoted to helping our clients to be extraordinary, to develop and grow extraordinary enterprise value. And there's 4 streams we play in, we talked about, which is growth strategies. That's everywhere from sales, client management, execution, product rollout, marketing excellence, lead generation, new markets, all of that on the growth side. Second stream is operational excellence, how to automate and squeeze operating costs. Some of it is a pricing analysis, how to maximize your pricing, how to get more margin, where are you making money and where are you not. The third is around strategy, which is, are you heading in the right direction? What's your North Star? Are you going in the right direction? You describe the mountaintop. A lot of entrepreneurs are heading for a single mountaintop, and they got the mountaintop map, but the reality is that if they take a time, deep breath, they're going to find out, well, it's not that mountaintop, it's that one. And there's a shift, right? And they go off to the other one and have great success. Sometimes the entrepreneur struggles with that a little bit. And the third thing is, obviously, we're another sour and eggs, the arms and legs for them. The key thing for us is that we do a lot of discovery. And we spend actually a lot of time up front, off the meter, really understanding their business case. 2 reasons why. One is we can't improve enterprise value if we're burning SG&A, right? If we're a big, expensive, and we're delivering something that's not of value. So the more we understand on what the client needs and where their spots are that we can help, the more efficient we are going to be in the execution of resources. So the second thing is, the client prospect gets to see us. They get to see that, we're not a generalist company. We're not, Accenture. We don't come in with a suit and a mouthpiece that knows all the words and pass to a grad student. The people doing the work are the ones that actually understand the business and may understand the business better than the entrepreneur does. So getting to see us in action is a way for them to get comfortable And then we can also get a sense for whether or not, do we put ourselves at risk? They say, you know what, we're so confident we can help you here, we'll drop back the time and materials in exchange for success fees. So the engagement up front is a lot of roll the sleeves up, due diligence, figure out where we can help. And then also, and we've had these conversations before where we throw our hands in and say, we can't help you. We can't. And sometimes that's the hard decision, right? You get under the hood and you go, not every company's going to be successful. And we're not afraid to tell somebody that they're not going to be successful and that we can't help. So yeah, so that's the basic fundamentals around our engagement.
Fantastic. Now, there's a lot that you do to perhaps maybe make it a little easier to digest for the audience. Could you share a story with us about, how it is you came in and worked with a client to actually help them achieve an extraordinary outcome?
Yeah. So the thing that kind of jumps to mind for us is, it was an experience I had as an executive. There were 3 companies coming together and all very different. They had different kind of operating models. And so you would say, well, how do you put these 3 together? Because even in theory, from a investment hypothesis, you would never put the 3 companies together because some of them had some shared experiences. But the reality is that we put the 3 companies together because of the shared service and the fundamentals around technology. So these were 3 companies, one of which was minting cash, doing extraordinarily well, had no infrastructure, no real way to scale. Another was a really new startup, burning cash, just about out of runway, just about done. The third was an established company with some private equity investment, but was not hitting anywhere near its targets, and there was a threatening of revolt with the investors. We put the 3 companies together. We created a shared service environment with our technology to lever the technology across all the platforms. We invested in the company that was minting cash into platform to develop even more scalability. We found a better strategy to follow on the one company that was underperforming. And frankly, the other company that that was a startup that was struggling a little bit, we just turned them, we put that kind of maintenance mode and then leveraged the technology. Flash forward, at the end of the first year, we took 3 companies and we grew the EBITDA almost 40% just by rationalizing. And so it wasn't easy. I mean, there were a lot of things to try and navigate. We reduced the operating expense, we grew the revenues, but the main thing was that we set the company up for success on a go-forward basis because we had a vision for each of the 3 companies, and we also knew we could leverage the assets of one to the other. So sometimes there's success where you don't necessarily know it's there, and if I did a Harvard Business Review and said, I got these 3 companies and these are what they do, and I'm going to put them together, you go, there's no synergies there. What are you doing? Well, there were synergies there insofar as we created a tech shop, and that tech shop that we were able to lever into skills brought great value to the other 2 companies. So, pretty proud of that one.
All you need is
that was and navigated through COVID. And I mean, there was all kinds of things going on. Switched out the leadership team, and when you have angry investors, they're not happy, right? And so it takes a little doing to navigate through it. But some of the finest work I've ever done, I think. So pretty proud of that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, it sounds like sometimes all people really need is a sunstone to see through the clouds and, be able to navigate their way through those. And
I'm not going to pretend that I see the sun all the time. And then, and I can see clearly now as the song goes and everything, you go, bing, the lights go off. And when you have that magical moment, it's great. But, I've had my share, which is, help where I've made mistakes where I thought I saw the sun and I ran hard to it. I thought I saw the mountaintop. I ran hard to it. And there's a song by my favorite group. Show me a man who's never failed, and I'll show you somebody who learned nothing at all. Right. And so, yeah, I've stumbled along the way and learned as well. And great lessons.
Needless to say. So, Mike, you're a buck and bronco. I mean, you've built some pretty incredible companies. You've turned some around. You've helped others forwards. When we're looking at Sunstone today, what is in your next level of growth at Sunstone? What are you guys focused on right now?
We're going through what a lot of companies of our vintage are doing, and folks by vintage, you described decades of it. I'm not that old. Yeah. So a lot of historically companies that are in advisory business like ours, you live off referrals, right? It's your Rolodex, it's the people you know, and I've had the great fortune of growing up in the business with a lot of amazing folks, but a lot of them are, they're kind of aging out. I'm still going. And so developing that new round of Rolodex and also building a business that's not built on referrals, right? Build a business that's built. And on the old fashioned way. Now the big folks, the McKinseys of the world, I mean, they're on the must call list. So, they'll show up at the Super Bowl and the Masters and do their advertising, and that's it. So what does a healthy, good size consulting firm like us do? Very few people are really in the organic lead generation business. Very few are doing anything in the way of advertising. So our mission and our journey has been, how do we differentiate and build a new audience set of referrals that we can go to? And we've made mistakes along the way. And the cool thing is as we're going through this journey for ourselves, we're building muscle memory for ourselves, for our clients, because they're all in the same thing. Like, how do I generate? And we've done it all on a podcast, right? We'll generate reusable content. We'll use that. Doing LinkedIn content, blast emailing. I mean, you name it, we've done it. Learn what works and what doesn't work. And so that has really been an intense focus for us right now, which is getting our firm to the next level. And to get to the next level, we need a much wider audience than just our old LinkedIn connection and Rolodex. And that's dominated what we've been doing.
Absolutely, especially as times change and a lot more competitors enter the market as well, right? Things need to change if you want to experience different growth or different results ultimately. I think a lot of consultants are in this position as well, like you identified, right?
Sure.
Build great businesses based off of referrals, off of the Rolodex, off of relationships, and they're trying to break out of that. I love the approach that you're taking with expanding that network, but I think creating value, getting in front of the right people, right? What are you doing that you find is working the best right now? Any tips you can share with the audience?
Yeah, so I would say that, sometimes I think you just got to go on the journey yourself, and you got to try things, even if those things don't work. And so the stories I would say is, we started with the idea, this goes back about 3 or 4 years ago, we sat around and we just simply went and looked at our Rolodexes. Who were the people in our Rolodex, and we added it up. And we said, what percent of them was in the market, the total addressable market, what percent of them in the market, how many are going to go to bid every year? And we're not looking to live off an anchor client. And just said, well, that's not enough. So we got to get more people in our Rolodex. And we started with a very simplistic idea. We said, okay, well, let's, and LinkedIn felt like a little crowded to us. So we're going to send emails. And we went on the journey, the cold email journey, and tried everything, right? And finally, one day and everything from, you name the technology behind it, the technique, ABCDE testing, you name it. And I was, and I had never been in the organic lead gen business. I never had to do it. So it was great learning for me, but it was also painful because it didn't really work. And why didn't it work? Because we didn't stop with the idea that our clients are not going to buy off a cold email, period. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter how great we are. Doesn't matter. I put these stories and little snippets and send it out. You want to talk to me? No, I don't. You're wasting my time. Stop sending me emails. So it's a twist, right? So now we use emails as a way to make a connection, even if the prospect says no, because all I just say is, like, we'll get on the phone 15 to 20 minutes. It's better than a LinkedIn connection. And that's okay. You get some, but it's just making a connection and then nurturing that connection over time, staying front of mind. And so that really has been the mission for us. Still do the work, and make sure you do the work in understanding who your ideal client profile is. Make sure you understand who you're intruding on, because when you send an email, you're intruding, and try to put the time and effort in to hit your audience, and then nurture that audience over time with the stories. This is what we've done, front of mind. Advertising is like dropping leaflets out of an airplane in Manhattan. Not going to work for us, because it's a highly specified target and ideal client profile at a given point in time, and we got to stay front in time. So it's content, it's conversations like this, it's LinkedIn content, it's newsletters, it's staying out in front, but it's looking at cold emailing as not a lead generation business, but as a prospective contact, and then nurture from there. That's the work we're doing now.
Yeah, and you're moving in the right direction, right? And something you said a few minutes ago is, show me a man who says he's never made a mistake, and I'll show you a man who
doesn't know anything.
What was the end of it? Doesn't know anything, right? So you have to fail, you have to test. And I love the testing you've gone through, because you found what a lot of people are still in denial of, right? People aren't going to, well, there's a few people who will, but by and large, people aren't going to buy anything from a direct email anymore. It used to work, but especially in a tech-driven world today, people want relationships. They want connection, right? So use those emails to make real connections, generate real conversations, provide meaning, provide value, draw people in, right? All you need to do is get in front of somebody for a real value-driven conversation, and that's the real differentiator.
Well, and at a time that they need it too, because the other thing is that I mean, how many companies fit our profile that are, at that stage where I don't know if it's working the way I want. The founder owner says, man, do I have somebody I can bounce things off of? Well, that's a point in time. If you're, and again, we don't send emails that are, glitchy or whatever. We're trying to develop our credibility and just say, I just want 20 minutes of your time to make a connection. I have no idea if I can help you. I'm not going to sell you anything. But even that, I mean, I get the emails too, 15, 20 a day, and all with their little scripts. And I go, I know what this is, right? And so our contacts know what it is as well. So it's a crowded space, and we learned the hard way. First, we thought lead, emailing just was going to generate leads for us, and it doesn't. But it generates opportunity that you can then nurture over time, build a relationship, even if it's just tangential at the time and pace they want, not the time and pace you want, and build your audience. And that's what we've been really focused on.
Yeah. So Mike, you and Sunstone, you're going through another growth shift right now.
Absolutely.
Right? Everybody is, especially with AI and the direction that it's going and the opportunities it's bringing to companies today. When we look at that next growth shift, what you're doing now, what you're testing, what you're moving towards, where does AI start to come into play for your growth?
Yeah, great question. And truth be told, we are AI from a number of vantage points. First vantage point, and obvious, is the use of AI in our own business. Across the board, you're seeing massive layoffs at the big companies. The McKinseys and others are laying tons of folks. And a lot of those folks you describe are rolling out and hanging their own shingle out. So you have, I think in the Metro DC alone, I want to say the number is like 2,000 independent consultants hung out their shingles in the last year or two. So not more competition in the market, but more sole practitioner. So the first thing is use of AI inside of our own business and where it can be exploited. We're doing everything right now, frankly, a lot of manual stuff, lookups and things like that, and it can be so much more efficient. And I've seen some of the tools, not an expert at it, right? But I know for my own business and my own efficiency, the use of AI can be used to, just the whole process around identifying an ideal client profile, getting access to what the contact is, and making sure that it's a fit and you're not spinning your wheels. AI can play an immeasurable role in improving the efficiency of that. The second thing is that clients are all dealing with the same thing. So the fact that we're not experts in AI and maybe have at best a cursory, working knowledge of it, it's not going to be good for our clients. So that's a real area of focus for us, which is okay. Like with the lead generation, we need to build a muscle memory. We need it for our own business. Spending hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, curation of leads and things like that can all be done with AI. Much more efficient, much more focused, fewer targets, not more, more precise. And then also taking that muscle memory back in our own business. So we are in the learning phase. We are, but it's a mission we must absolutely go on, not only for ourselves, but for the sake of our clients as well.
I couldn't agree more, right? You got to stay up to date with the changing times, right? Not only for your sake, but for the sake of the goals and the fears of clients at the end of the day. AI is massively disruptive. And if you're not in a position to be that Sherpa for your clients, even if you only know 10 or 15% more than them, right? That's all that anyone needs at any point in time to be able to
15% and I know a guy, right?
Yeah.
Right? I don't have to be the expert. There's just some of that, we play kind of the super referral process. And, the lesson for me goes back what I learned as a young person during my Sherpa phase in a sales office. And there were all these senior sales folks. And senior, relatively young at the time, but they let the business go by them and their opinions became dogma. They stopped reinventing themselves, and they found themselves after 20 or 30 years inside the company, forced early retirement. And I remember as a young person going, I'm never going to let that happen to me. I'm going to stop inventing myself. I'm never going to stop learning, and I'm never going to think my opinions are dogma. And it's a lesson I kept to this day. And then the first horizon I just got over was learning organic lead generation. Now I'll be a student of the business and with the help of good folks, learn how to use AI and get a talking journey knowledge of it, and then know a guy.
Yeah. Now, Mike, AI, it's coming for the consulting industry, right? It's going to replace some pretty big parts of it, right?
Yeah.
Some players within. But what I think will remain is that people are going to still crave and demand human relationships, especially when they're going for advice, right? To people who they want to be able to trust and understand that they know them, right? From your perspective and from the experience that you have, when we're looking at where AI should not be used in consulting and where it can start to compromise the essential human element of trust and relationship building, where's that line that shouldn't be crossed?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think at the end of the day, where AI will be invaluable, we've already talked a little bit on kind of the running of the business and the lead generation side of it, and identifying your ideal client profile and all the efficiency of being highly targeted and focused. So let's put that aside. Let's talk about the operation, the actual deliverable of producing work on behalf of your client. And I've said this to folks too, and I learned the hard way as well. When you first become a consultant, you don't realize how much production work there is in just generating a deliverable, an SOW, like a project, right? We just did this, we discovered that. And historically in the consulting world, it's all done manually, right? It's all done, and it's very time consuming. And the other thing that's really, really time consuming is just the research part of your average, consulting project, which is you're scanning the marketplace, you're looking things up, all manual. AI has the opportunity to dramatically make that more efficient. I mean, picture this, the idea of, through natural language programming, say, oh, I'm looking for this, and half an hour later, you got a full scan that would take you 3 days to do if you were doing it on your own. Or you've built kind of templates and things like that, and you say, okay, I need an SOW, here's what the client thinks, and boom, it's done. So just the production side of managing and executing the deliverables on behalf of your client. And that's where a lot of the changes are coming, right? So through use of AI, you don't need the kid right out of grad school to go down to the library and go on the internet and surf for the next 3 or 4 days. You can do it for AI, and that's where you're seeing some of these level positions go away. So I would say that in summary, obviously the marketing side of it and the lead generation, ideal client side of it, but also the fundamentals around the deliverables that you're doing for your client can all be made so much more efficient through AI.
Yeah, the production capacity speaks for itself,
Yep.
just how much more quickly you can deliver, how much more accurately as well. So when we look at where AI should not be used,
Yeah.
as part of
Yeah, I'm
that
not
as
a,
well.
I'm not a big fan of avatars and things like that. I mean, I think, and I know it's, some of the stuff's genius and I've seen it's great. But, yeah, I mean, I still think at the end of the day, the Sherpa advice and counsel, needs to lead the charge. It's not something, even on the front end of the lead generation, of the building and nurturing relationships. At the end of the day, it's still the expertise and the experience of the person that I, at least today, don't see AI replacing. I have 10 operating partners, all with differing backgrounds and skills and all different experiences. I've got to convert that into AI. They're going to share their experiences with the client. They're going to provide the insights with the client. Not sure it lends itself to a library where it's a lookup table and something pops out, because everything's a little different and there's nuance. So I think that's the place where the actual judgment of whether this is the right thing or not will still be there. The underlying stuff that builds up to it and develops the data and puts the case study in front of you, the ultimate analysis and deliverability still has got to be somebody with a brain and know what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. And just to speak on that momentarily, I mean, like right now, AI is still based off of algorithms, patterns, and processes. It's not artificial general intelligence yet, but even if we look at the intent that AI has as it is today towards humans, it's not a very good outlook. Just in terms of situations that leading companies have run with putting AI in a position where it chooses its own existence versus the life of an individual human, and over 80% of the time it's choosing its own existence and letting that human die. So if AI doesn't evolve beyond where it is now, and if it doesn't actually be able to start to operate with the human's well-being in mind, it's never going to be able to advise humans and businesses in the way that they're looking for. Right? How could you trust something like that?
Yeah, it's every dystopic sci-fi movie you've ever seen, or it's the machines go crazy and Arnold Schwarzenegger comes back to kill the rebel leader, right? And if you're crossing lines where you think it'll replace kind of the human side of it, I think that's where it's going to get a little dodgy. And I'm not sure, we'll see. Maybe we'll end up with C-3PO and R2-D2. I don't know. We'll see.
I'd be all right with that, but I'm not sure about Terminator style or level AI.
Right.
Yeah, that's a little too scary.
A little scary.
Mike, your story covers strategic adaptation, market segmentation, and a deep commitment to achieving extraordinary growth. For the founders and the growth-minded listeners who are navigating their own growth shift, what's the single most important piece of advice that you'd leave them with about identifying their proprietary distinction and making strategic decisions for long-term success.
Yeah, and I go into an organization, no matter what it was, throughout my career, no matter where I was. The first question is, what's your proprietary distinction? What does that mean? Well, how are you bigger, faster, better, cheaper than your competition? Because at the end of the day, it's a competitive market. You're in a market. And then the value proposition sits underneath that, which is, what is it you do on behalf of your clients? But it's amazing, particularly in some of the companies with their technology and things like that. The proprietary distinction a lot of times is not a benefit to the customer. I mean, I challenge you to go small to mid-sized companies in the tech, healthcare, insurance space, go on their website and tell me what they do. I mean, I'm in the business. I know this stuff like the back of my hand. A lot of times I go, I don't know what you do, right? You're telling me all the features and your technology and your stack and your AI and Arvid, but you're not telling me what it is that you do. And you're not telling me what you do that makes you bigger, faster, better, cheaper than the competition. Thank you, Captain Obvious, but it doesn't get executed consistently. Do you have a clear understanding of what your total addressable market is, who and why they buy, why you are better than the current solutions in the marketplace, and is that fortifiable? And sometimes what happens is that manifests itself in feedback like, oh, we got a great product, and but our sales team stinks. And you go in, and sometimes the sales team needs work. But a lot of times, and I always call it's the old Ayn Rand, check your premise. A, I have an amazing company, that's doing great things. B, I have a blue ocean, fantastic opportunity in the marketplace. C, I am growing profitably and everything's going well. Well, a lot of times, A plus B doesn't equal C. And that's where you got to check your premise. One of the two things is off. Either you're not executing, or maybe your total addressable market is what you think it is. So boring, trite, fundamental, but it works. Start with the real basics and then grade yourself. Be tough. Do not let yourself off the hook, because the market's going to grade you and you may not like the answers. So I'd say 101 business fundamentals. Yeah. Boring, trite. Thank you, Captain Obvious. A lot of companies don't do it, and that's why they flounder.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your story with the audience today. For anyone listening who might like to learn more about Sunstone Management or might like to just continue the conversation with you, what would be the best way to reach out?
Yeah, so you can get to us on our website. It's sunsstonemanagementadvisors.com. Check it out. We got a very Viking nautical thing with the whole Sunstone, so we have a little fun with that. And then obviously you can get to me directly on my email, which is mfmurphy@sunsstonemanagementadvisors.com. And if you're just looking for brain pickage, you just want to make an intro, just want to make a connection, we don't have to sell each other or anything. I just love talking to people, entrepreneurs, folks are out there and keeping up with what's going on. So I'd love to hear from folks.
Mike, thanks again for joining us today on The Growth Shift.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Another powerful conversation on The Growth Shift. If you, like our guests, are ready to turn your expertise into a predictable, scalable growth engine, one that eliminates the grind of prospecting and enhances your high-value relationships, then it's time to connect with Valentix. We are not a marketing agency. We are your strategic growth partner, building intelligent systems that ensure your client acquisition is predictable, not dependent on chance. To see how our AI-powered frameworks can free up your time and fill your calendar with decision makers, visit valentix.io. Thank you for joining us on The Growth Shift. We'll see you next time.